All righty, we are back to insider betting. We got UFC Abu Dhabi this weekend. We're going to be covering the main card. We're going to be covering the feature prelim as well. As always, we don't watch the rest of the prelims. You don't either, so we don't cover them. But first things first, Jesse, how's it going, my man?
It's going well. This is that's how we're going to open the episodes. We're going to get the casual comments that we don't watch the prelims. So it's
we're here for the casuals. Come on.
Yeah. Majority of fans are casuals. So
exactly. We can't shit on them. Come on.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. It's a good card. It's actually a great card to be for a fight night. Very good.
It is probably the best fight night card this year. So far, because I think the Sphere, did they change it back to a pay-per-view?
Yeah, that was rumored for a little bit that they were gonna move it to just a fight night because they wanted to make room for McGregor pay-per-view. But it looks like Conor's gonna go at UFC 310 at the end of the year, and they kept it as UFC 306. So it is officially a pay-per-view. Yeah.
Perfect. So probably the best.
Stay home and pay the $85 though, because you're not getting tickets to that thing. It's like $3,000 to sit in the nosebleeds. Yeah,
that's crazy. Well, I don't know if any seat in the Sphere nosebleeds.
I was just about to say, I feel like I would rather spend the $3K to sit in the back to spend the $30K or whatever it is to sit in the front, because I'm not going to be able to see the Sphere show all that as well as I would in the back. I don't know. I've actually never been, so if I'm wrong on that, I could be way off.
Yeah, I wonder how it's laid out in there.
Yeah, I mean, they did a whole layout. Actually, it's going to be pretty cool. But
how many seats is it? 20K?
It's like 20K.
Yeah. It's still massive.
But like 35,000 if you want to sit ringside, which is just crazy. So
crazy. Yeah. Anyway, we have the first feature prelim of the night. Let's pull it up here really quick. Perfect. So we got the first feature prelim of the night, or I guess this is the only feature prelim. But anyway, the only prelim we're talking about today, it's Alonzo Menifield versus Azamat Murzakanov. I butcher these names, but who gives a shit? Yeah, he's
Murzakanov. Yeah.
He's 13-0. He's one of those OV last names. I believe he is Russian, but surprisingly, he has a mustache. So he's not one of the OG Russians with beard, no mustache crew.
Right.
He's still a dog. He's 13-0. He's got 9 knockouts out of his 13 wins. Menifield, though, he's also got 10 knockouts out of his 15 wins. So little foreshadowing to my parlay at the end. This fight is not going to go the distance. It's probably going to end by a knockout. Both of their most recent wins came against Dustin Jacoby, with Menifield getting knocked out versus Carlos Alberg in 12 seconds in his last fight. And Alonzo in his typical fashion, incredible fighter, so well-rounded, incredible power, but just super poor fight IQ. This guy, like when the initial bell rang, he sprints across the cage and just gets laid out. I think he did land a punch, and don't quote me on that, but I do think he landed a punch in that sprint. But the punch landed against him was just a lot stronger, and he got laid out. I'm leaning towards Azamat here. I think it's gonna be a similar situation. I think it's gonna be a poor IQ situation. Azamat, he's legit, again, 13-0. I think he's got a few wins, at least a couple in the UFC already. I think he's 4-0 though overall in the UFC. But anyway, I'm going with him, unfortunately. Although I would love to see Alonzo win. He's a friend of the show. He's been on I believe he's been on before. And again, would love to see him win, but this guy seems to be legit. Yeah,
I agree with you here. You buried the lead a little bit on Menifield, because I got to give you some credit. The last time we did a breakdown of his fight, he was fighting Carlos Ulberg. And Carlos Ulberg, I think this might be what you're mentioning, but he knocked him out in 12 seconds. Yeah. You're talking about poor fight IQ. You literally said that Menifield has poor fight IQ. And then what happens? He gets knocked out in 12 seconds, doing exactly what you said. He for some reason decided to make it a brawl with like one of the scariest brawlers in light heavyweight right now. So it was just bad decision, got knocked out in 12 seconds. I think that he has great high value underdog potential here. Don't get me wrong. Both of these guys have unanimous decision wins over Dustin Jacoby, which is and their last wins are both against Dustin Jacoby. Interesting that Murzakanov hasn't fought in over a year, if I'm reading that correctly, which is interesting, or will be close to a year. No, sorry, like a year and 4 months or something. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's been a while.
So
no, April 15th, 2023 was the last time he fought against Jacoby. And I'm not sure why. Maybe he was injured.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But 13-0, OV last name. He, it's dangerous combination. It's interesting why he leaves the mustache and doesn't shave it, but I agree. I would consider high value a sprinkle on potentially Menifield by KO, because I think that's his only path to victory here. He has to knock him out. But either way, whoever's winning this fight is knocking him out. But I'll take Murzakanov by KO at plus 130. I think that's the bet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a solid bet. And I actually just looked into it. Murzakanov broke his arm in the third round versus Dustin Jacoby. So I think he took some time to recover. Feels good now, and now he's back. Although a broken arm doesn't take that long to recover, but they're a pretty violent sport here. I think they're going to be 100% before coming back. So fair enough on the layover there.
Yeah. Oh, he also has a knockout win over Andre Muniz back in 2016. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that one was outside the UFC.
Yeah, that was in ICFC. Yeah. International Caucasian Fight Championship.
That's a crazy promotion.
What is that? I've never heard. That's wild.
No, did not know that exists.
Yeah.
Anyway, to open up our main card, this one's actually pretty crazy. So Joel Alvarez versus Elves Brenner. Joel Alvarez is coming in as the favorite at minus 185 versus Elves Brenner being a plus 154. Joel has a few advantages. He's got a 4-inch height advantage. He's got a 4.5 inch reach advantage. And he's got 17 submission wins in his 20 out of his 20 wins. But Elves Brenner, he's also got 11 submission wins in his 16 wins. So it's going to be an interesting fight. What a lot of people don't realize is Alvarez, he will submit you, but he cannot take you down to save his life. None of his submission wins did he have a takedown. I don't think he's got a single takedown in the UFC.
Wow.
Which again, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Brenner, on the other hand, he's got a 75% takedown defense. But again, we're not expecting Joel to get taken down. We're expecting what could happen is Elvis takes Joel down and then Joel submits him on the ground. So his submission game is crazy. But Brenner is the better striker. And I think that's what he's going to have to take advantage of. I think he's going to try to keep this fight on his feet. I think he's going to try to avoid taking Joel Alvarez down. And I have a feeling that this fight could go the distance just based on that. So we'll have to see, because I don't think Brenner is knocking Joel out. I just think he might have to piece him up a little bit, win a few rounds, and take the fight by decision that way. But that has me going with Brenner. What are your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I understand. Here's the thing about fights like this. You got two guys that have, like you mentioned, so many submissions. So many of their wins are by submission, like Brenner, 11 of his 16, 14 or 17 of the 20 for Alvarez of their wins are by submission. Oftentimes when that happens, you got two guys that are grappling heavy. It leads to a striking battle because they're sort of like weary of each other's submission attempts. Seems to me like Alvarez, the fact that he doesn't get any takedowns, but he has all these submissions, he's almost like a Charles Oliveira type of fighter. That's, poor man's Oliveira, I'll say, where he finds himself getting knocked down or taken down, like you said, and then he has to, he creates his offense off of his defense and through his guard, essentially, by pulling guard. So I would pick, in this situation, it feels a little bit more like a coin flip than the odds would indicate. So whenever I see a fight like that, I agree with you. I like Brenner because he's getting better odds. And if he has really good takedown defense and this guy doesn't take anybody down, I think Brenner's just got better odds in that case. But everything else seems pretty even. I guess if it becomes a striking match on the feet, it favors Alvarez simply because of the reach. But like you mentioned, Brenner might be a better striker. So I'll take Brenner.
This is, you know what? as you were talking, I was like completing the thoughts in my head because obviously I was doing some research before the fight. This is kind of what I was thinking might actually happen as well. Is I'm going to stick with the striking stuff where Brenner is going to have to strike to win this match. But I think where my mind was kind of leading me towards was I think he's going to struggle outstriking Alvarez because of the reach and height advantage.
Yeah.
And I think what that's going to make him do is I think it's going to make him try to grapple. He's going to take down Alvarez. And I think we might see a submission win based off of that. So I think if Brenner's able to stick to the game plan, which should be striking, he has the potential to win. But if he's struggling, he's going to go to his roots. He's going to go to what he's good at, which is taking people down and trying to win it on the ground. And I think that Alvarez might be able to do that better than him. So
yeah,
super big coin flip. I think I actually did put money down on Joel Alvarez, but it really could go either way.
Yeah, I think I would bet money line though in this one. I just wouldn't be comfortable with betting a submission against two, just because both guys have such some heavy submission success, a high level of success, that they might be avoiding some of those situations as best as they can. So I could see them sort of dancing around each other a little bit for like a round and a half. So, but I it's a coin flip a coin, bet money line.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
On to the next fight. We got Mackenzie Dern versus Loopy Godinez. Similar situation to Alonzo Menifield. Godinez is the better overall fighter. She should win. Mackenzie Dern, super one-dimensional. She can grapple. She's probably one of the best grapplers in the UFC, but she cannot wrestle. She cannot strike. She will grapple though. Yeah. So if it comes down to it, Mackenzie Dern, she's been in the UFC for a very long time. She's got good decision making. I think she can pull off the win here, which is why she is the favorite going into this fight. But Loopy just struggles with her decision making, like kind of like Menifield. Like her fight IQ tends to be all over the place. But what I will say is she has an 84% takedown defense, which is incredible versus a fighter like Mackenzie Dern. If she can keep that takedown defense under control like she has in the past, she should be able to pull off the win. She should just be able to pull off the win as the underdog. So I am going with Loopy Godinez here. I think she's going to get the win over Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern's also in a 2-fight losing streak. She lost versus Amanda Lemos and Jessica Andrade. Loopy Godinez, she is coming off of a loss versus Verna Yandaroba. Again, I think that both of them have lost to incredibly worthy opponents, so I don't think that tells us much. I just think that Lupita Godinez, she should be able to pull off the win here.
I have some interesting comparisons here. Loopy reminds me a little bit of this fight reminds me of Ilia Topuria versus Brian Ortega. I'll put it that way, where you have Mackenzie Dern, who's a jiu-jitsu specialist, who loves to box and strike when they probably shouldn't a lot of the time, throws a little bit wild, and then will take some hits. Will just take some punches unnecessary damage, but then somehow finds a way to sneak out a submission and get the win. Loopy is a lot like Topuria, maybe not as clean of a boxer as Topuria, not as dominant. Obviously, Topuria is a champion, but she has a very good boxing style, very clean, crisp boxing, with a very good ground game and wrestling that she can implement as well. We did an interview with her. Mike Owens did an interview with her talking about her edge over Mackenzie Dern's striking, because Mackenzie Dern's striking leaves a lot to be desired. She's very wild. She's very she just doesn't have great defense, and I think that's a big problem with her striking. And then it's not pretty when she actually throws a punch, but she actually can land. But she just throws a little wild. So in the interim of her landing, she's taking a lot of damage in the process. I think Loopy will eke out a decision here if I'm a betting man, and I think that it'll be settled on the feet a lot. I think Mackenzie will have her moments, but I think Loopy will just outpoint her.
Yeah.
I don't see a knockout necessarily. I could maybe see ground and pound TKO. I don't think Loopy will get a clean knockout.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, but I'll bet money line on Loopy.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah.
On to the next fight. Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa. Seems like two guys who shouldn't be fighting anymore going at it, which is fair because Tony was supposed to fight Nick Diaz, which again would have been two guys who shouldn't be fighting.
No. Vicente Luque was supposed to fight Nick Diaz. That fight was
sorry.
pulled from this. No, people thought
You're right.
that Tony should have fought Nick Diaz. That should have been the matchup.
Correct.
But instead, it was like people were confused. Why is Nick fighting Luque? Like Luque should be fighting Chiesa, whereas Ferguson should be fighting Nick. That's what a lot of people were saying.
You're right. That
Yeah.
I was just thinking about Nick
Right.
pulling out, and like when I saw Nick pull out, I was just like, oh, Tony, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That
Right.
was the original matchup, not happening anymore. But anyway,
Yep.
Tony Ferguson, Michael Chiesa, two guys who shouldn't be fighting. Chiesa hasn't fought in a year. He is somehow minus 600, which like I
Man.
just don't understand. I understand him being the favorite. Don't get me wrong, but at minus
Yeah.
600, I am not touching this fight with a 10-foot pole. It seems honestly like this should be even odds. It seems like Tony is on a 7-fight losing streak. Don't get me wrong. You know, I am not confident. I don't think he's gonna win as much as I want him to win, but I am not confident putting my money on Michael Chiesa as well. He just hasn't been here. He's also been losing. I don't understand what the odd makers are going with here. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He lost to Kevin Holland, Sean Brady, and Vicente Luque. This is probably Tony Ferguson's most favorable matchup since fighting Nate Diaz, to be fair. Yeah. And it's more favorable than that. It's tough, dude. I don't know. I'm going with Chiesa, but I want Tony to win, for sure.
You have to consider taking the odds on Tony Ferguson here, only because Michael. Look, do I think Tony's gonna win? Flip a coin between these two guys, but like plus 440 against between two guys that are both kind of washed up. I mean, no disrespect by saying it, but they're just not. They're not in their primes anymore. Chiesa looked terrible against Kevin Holland, if I'm being honest. As respectfully as I can say that, he looked slow. Tony Ferguson looked slow in his last fight. Obviously, like the wrestling advantage and the jiu-jitsu advantage, like Chiesa's going to try to take Tony down and submit him, but Tony's got great jiu-jitsu. He's got great grappling. That's something that you can still pull off even when you're kind of older. You can still pull off some submissions. He might not be as fast and crisp, but the power never goes away. He has an advantage. Tony has an advantage in striking for sure. I would consider actually, I'm going to say, I think Tony's going to end it. I think Tony's going to get this one, and it's going to be a pretty sloppy fight, but I think Tony will land something, and then he'll get into a submission attempt of some kind. Maybe he'll win on control time. I don't know. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe he has to get the finish to win, because I just feel like Chiesa is going to be a little younger and fresher than Ferguson, but yeah, what a weird odds though. Very, very crazy weird odds. I'll take Ferguson. Yeah. Fuck it. I don't know if I'm going to put any money on it. I'll consider like a small sprinkle. Like maybe I'll put like $20 down on Ferguson.
Yeah. So. I was actually watching another analysis of this fight, and the analysis I was watching, the guy was saying that he thinks, or not that he thinks, that he's heard through someone who he believes is reliable, but this is unconfirmed everywhere. He believes that Michael Chiesa went through an injury during training camp, and that's unknown, and that's why he's leaning towards Tony. So something else to keep in mind. But again, this is super unconfirmed, super unreliable from my perspective. But who knows? You hear the rumor once, it could be true. It's probably something we'll find out after the fight. So
look, you got two guys that are in the same point of their career, very similar points in their career. Tony's, he's one of the all-time greats at lightweight, and you're getting a plus 440 against a guy that's never really accomplished a whole ton. Let's just be honest. He's a successful fighter, but not was really like a true title challenger in any way. Right? Fuck it. Bet on Tony. This is his best shot at a win. Good, I hope he retires afterwards, to be honest, but go out on top,
Yeah. I talked to Tony's manager a while ago, and this guy does not have any plans to retire from my understanding.
I know.
So I don't win or loss. I think he's going to keep going, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's going to go at the very least until his UFC contract is up. So I don't know when that is, but I think he will clear out his fights for sure. Even though Dana has publicly said like, hey, I'm never pushing someone out, but Tony's got to go, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, featured fight of the night, Marlon Vera versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Winner of this fight could potentially go up to a title shot or a title contention fight. So they're both 1 or 2 fights away from being back. Marlon Vera is obviously coming off of a loss in his title fight to Sean O'Malley. So you know what? I take that back. If Vera wins, I don't see him getting another title shot. I think he has to win 2 more to get back in there. But Deiveson Figueiredo, there's an argument for him to get a title shot potentially later on, depending on how O'Malley and Merab's fights go. Deiveson Figueiredo, former flyweight champion. He moved up a couple fights ago. He's 2-0 as a bantamweight at the moment. He's got wins over Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font. Vera's last win was against Pedro Munoz. You look at it statistically and you're like, damn, Marlon Vera, he's got 23 wins, 8 of those are knockouts, 10 of those are submissions. You look at Figueiredo, you say, damn, 23 wins, 9 knockouts, and 9 submissions in there. So you might assume this fight's not going the distance. I don't think Vera's getting knocked out. Figueiredo could get knocked out because he is the smaller guy coming into this fight, but at the same time, I don't see him getting knocked out either or submitted. I think this fight's going to go to distance. I think it's going to be an absolute dog fight. Another thing I should say is Vera's only lost by decision. So that's another thing to support that comment. And something that I thought was super interesting is Figueiredo being the smaller guy coming up into the bantamweight division, right? Because he moved up from flyweight. He does have 4 takedowns versus Rob Font, and he's got another takedown against Cody Garbrandt. And I think that's super impressive, being the smaller guy to still be able to take guys down no matter what. So I think we're going to see a few takedowns in this fight. I'm going with Figueiredo. What are your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, very interesting fight. Very tough to predict is indicative by the odds here. The problem that I'm having for Chito is you mentioned how he only loses by decision. I do see that being a possibility here. Figgy throws a lot of offense at you early. He comes out hot. He's a very, very active fighter. Yeah. Chito has a tendency to be it's ad nauseum at this point how many times people have talked about this. Chito has a tendency to start fights very slow, to download the data, sort of get a read on his opponent, which causes him to lose a lot of the early rounds. He'll lose the first round a lot just by trying to download as much data as he can. I don't know if you could do that against Figgy. I'm concerned about that for Chito here. Chito might be in a position late in this fight where he's going to need a finish. But, God, this is tough, Adam. I really like... I think I like Figueiredo in this fight. I could see him getting like a 2nd or 3rd round finish with the submission, but I could also see it going to decision. I think you're right in the sense that they're probably 2 fights away from a title shot, by the way, because the winner of the main event of this card might be more in line to get the next title shot after Merab fights O'Malley at the Sphere. It's likely to be Sandhagen or Umar Nurmagomedov. But this one feels pretty close too, especially if Figueiredo wins. I think if Figueiredo wins, he could potentially jump the line. If he does it in spectacular fashion, he could be next after Sandhagen or Umar.
You're right. I think that... Sorry, go ahead.
Figgy.
Yeah, Figgy.
Money line. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about your analysis there on like the title contention. This is what I see happening. And we'll cover it at the end of the segment here. But if Cory beats Umar, I think Cory's obviously due for a title fight. But I think if Umar wins, although he's 17-0 and he's on a crazy fight win streak in the UFC, well, he's never lost. He's only ranked 10th overall. So I feel like they might even try setting up an Umar versus winner of this fight. And then winner of that goes to the title shot. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
We also have to consider this, that the UFC is taking a risk by putting O'Malley against Merab. They really had no choice because Merab is sort of undeniable. At this point, it had to be Merab.
Of course.
But like they want to milk the O'Malley cash cow as long as they can. So if they could see an opportunity to get a Chito rematch in there, they don't be surprised if they would take it, man. Just because... there's already history between they're 1-1 technically, O'Malley and Chito. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do like a trilogy fight, even though O'Malley like 50-44 Chito, just completely dominated him. But it's a possibility, more than you might expect, just because they want O'Malley to last as long as possible.
Most definitely.
So,
Most
yeah.
definitely. On to the co-main event. Shara Magomedov, Shara Bullet versus Michal
Oleksiejczuk.
beats me. Yeah. It's funny. Like I've heard his name pronounced before, but like when I have to read it out, there's just zero chance.
Yeah.
But anyway, Shara Bullet, he's considered one. Like when he was coming into the UFC, everybody was scared. Everybody was saying this guy is going to be just a massive threat. He's unlike the Dagestani guys we've seen in the past. He has unbelievable striking. He can just dominate fights. But we saw him fight Antonio Tricoli in his last fight, and that fight went way too late. Tricoli was on short notice. I think it was a week's notice. He was supposed to fight against I forget, but he got knocked out pretty quick against Whitaker. What was his name?
I'm sorry. Who? Yeah. Sorry.
I'm blanking on the name.
Dude, the guy that replaced Chimaev.
Correct.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, anyways, doesn't matter. But Antonio Tricoli was supposed to fight that guy, and then obviously that guy got the opportunity to fight Whitaker for a title contention fight or whatever, or a potential contention fight. So Shara Bullet ended up fighting Antonio Tricoli, who on a week's notice ended up fighting him. Long story short, Tricoli
Karov, by the way.
Alex Karov. Yeah, there we go. Tricoli hadn't fought in like many years. I forget how many years it was, but he just like shouldn't have been in the fight at all. And it went to the third round. Shara Bullet, like, I want to say pieced him up, but he chose his punches correctly and he didn't rush the fight. And I think he's just a lot more technical than guys expect. And so he wasn't just going for the finish. He wanted to win, but he wanted to ensure his victory and he didn't want to rush it, So a little bit weird there. But long story short is it's hard to kind of be like, oh my God, this guy is like the striker that we thought he was when he went 3 rounds to Tricoli, right? He does have 11 knockouts out of his 13 wins. Michal has 14 knockouts out of his 19 wins. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Kevin Holland and Michel Pereira. He's also been submitted 6 times out of his 8 losses. So that's something to keep in mind there. But I just think it's so hard to get bet against a guy who's undefeated at 13-0. So I'm going with Shara Bullet at -265. But I don't think it's going to be as big of a spread as the odds makers are saying it will be.
Yeah, and I agree with that. This is going to be his biggest test, Shara Bullet's biggest test for sure, because Oleksiejczuk has a lot of knockouts. He has 14 of his 19 wins by knockout. Never been knocked out. As another point here, probably never faced a striker like Shara Bullet. He's been knocked out once. He has? I'm not seeing that.
It might have been a TKO, but he has been, yeah.
Well, I don't see it. In his,
maybe not in the UFC,
actually. This was like in 2014. Yes, you're correct. Yeah. So he was one time. Yeah. So it's been 10 years since he's been TKO'd.
Yeah.
I would actually be tempted to sprinkle a little bit on Michal if he had more like submission wins and like more grappling in his game, because he actually was piecing up Kevin Holland a little bit before he ended up in that armbar, which was interesting. Like that was kind of a controversial loss. He actually landed someone on Kevin Holland who's got great kung fu, and it ended up in an armbar situation. Shara Bullet has no submission skills, like none. He does not go for this. He has 0 submissions. He will not go for submissions. It's like Izzy. You're likely never going to see an Israel Adesanya submission. But I think in a striking battle, if this stays a striking battle, I think you could pretty much lock Shara Bullet to win this fight, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if Michal can implement some wrestling here, he can make this a tough fight for him. He really could. Because it took Shara way too long to put that other dude away. Tricoli, is that who he fought?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took him way too long to put that dude away. But yeah, I would lock it in. I think Shara's going to get it done. But again, I'll know in like the first 30 seconds of the fight what Oleksiejczuk's game plan is here.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is, like, let's say Oleksiejczuk does grapple. We've just never seen Shara Bullet need to grapple. So we have no clue how good he is. From what we know, it's definitely not his strong suit. He avoids it like the plague.
Well,
but we have no clue how he is.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all good. Yeah. What were you going to say there?
Dana White, well, in his first fight, he got taken down a few times, and Dana White was basically saying that he really needs to work on that takedown defense. He's like, how are you from Dagestan and have no takedown defense?
For sure.
So, like, that's a huge hole in his game right now, and that's and when you only have one eye that's working, I mean, no disrespect by saying that, but that can be used to the advantage in terms of not seeing certain takedowns and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of Oleksiejczuk's game plan. So he's got to work on it.
I feel him.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is he lands a crazy amount per minute. Although he's pretty technical and chooses strikes, like he lands 7 strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 3 strikes per minute.
Leg kicks.
Yeah.
Leg kicks. He really uses those leg kicks.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Anyways, main event. Umar Nurmagomedov, Habib Nurmagomedov's cousin. Everybody thinks he's his brother. Cousins. Important to note. Versus Cory Sandhagen. Umar is exactly what you think he is. He's got 17 wins. He's 17-0. 7 of those wins were by submission. 8 of them were by decision. I'm not sure exactly how many fights he's had in the UFC, but enough to know he's legit. He's got 5 wins in the UFC. I think this fight was supposed to happen about a year ago, but then I think Umar pulled out because of I think it was a shoulder injury, but I don't remember exactly why he pulled out. And then they both went on to fight different people. Umar fought, I forget who he fought in that time, but Cory Sandhagen.
Yeah, he fought some no-name. Umar fought some no-name guy from like some sort of Middle Eastern country. I forget what it was.
And he fought Rob Font during that time, I believe. But anyway, this fight's on again. Cory is the 2nd ranked overall fighter in the bantamweight division. Umar is the 10th overall ranked fighter. Like we said, winner of this fighter could get a title shot. If Umar wins, arguably he should kind of go through one more fight at the very least to get that title fight, just considering that Cory Sandhagen is, at least for me, as a casual, as some would say, Cory's the only recognizable fighter that Umar will ever fight so far. So I feel like you got to get a couple of those to get the title fight. But look, Umar averages 4.51 takedowns per fight. As much as I want Cory to win, it just seems like one of those situations when your name ends with an OV, you got a beard, no mustache. Seems like Umar should win this one. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Everybody knows Yuri Prochazka is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. Another one is Cory Sandhagen. I absolutely, maybe it's because we're very similar. He's got a Danish last name. I have Danish descent. We're both just pale white dudes from the United States. Cory is an absolute savant. He's a genius of MMA. He studies everything as indiscriminately as anything else. He takes his striking as seriously as his grappling, and he's really worked on his wrestling. He's really worked on it. He's trained with Kamaru Usman. He's done everything he can to be as well-rounded as he possibly can. This is an insanely difficult test for Umar Nurmagomedov. I understand he's undefeated, and I understand he works with Habib. I understand all of that. I think that Sandhagen is totally capable of stopping this hype train. I think that you're getting great odds to take money on him. Look, if you're going to bet on Umar, I get it. But Sandhagen's a fucking animal for taking this fight. Sandhagen wanted this fight. He took this fight. Nobody wanted to take this fight but Cory Sandhagen. You got to take him seriously with the odds. And I know that I have my OV rule.
We're breaking the rules today, baby.
It's not going to be easy, but I really like the odds on Cory Sandhagen. I think I'm going to take it money line because I think that he is just so well-rounded that I think he'll find a way to find holes in Nurmagomedov's game, because Nurmagomedov has shown that he can take some hits every now and then. He has some holes in his stand-up. And if Cory's takedown defense is on point, you could find him in some compromising situations against an elite tactical practitioner like Cory Sandhagen. And I just really want to see Sandhagen versus O'Malley. So I think that's kind of why I'm sort of picking against the my brain a little bit, picking with my heart. But I do think Cory can get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. Like, we just haven't seen Umar Nurmagomedov against like a reasonable opponent. You
Right.
know, like I'm looking at his stats right now, and I don't know. Can I share? I won't share my screen, but he took 3 punches his last fight, 13 the one before that, 2 the one before that, 1 the one before that, and 7 the one before that. So like, this guy does not absorb many hits. So we haven't seen him get hit. So we don't know how he's going to react to them too much. Cory can't hit him. It really is like one of those fights where you want Cory to win, but it's just so hard betting against these Dagestani guys who are on such a win streak. Like, we haven't seen one of them get stopped as of yet, really.
Yeah. No,
Right?
they don't take a lot of damage. They really don't.
No.
They're like the best at it, which is like so frustrating because they just like seeing Islam with like blood over his eye against Poirier was so shocking to me. Like the fact that like Poirier was even able to land anything like that. But I think Cory just has all of the tools necessary to give him a hard time.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the harder matchups Umar could possibly have, if I'm being honest. Like, I would think Umar would have a better shot against O'Malley than against Sandhagen, like, if I'm being honest. So,
Wow.
Yeah, just because I think that O'Malley doesn't have the wrestling that Sandhagen does. Sandhagen has legit wrestling. He is a wrestler by nature. I'm not saying he's going to want to get into a wrestling match with Umar, but I'm saying that he can offset it a little bit. He can neutralize it a little bit in a way that O'Malley might not be able to.
Yeah, well, we've seen like Dustin a little bit versus Makhachev, and we've even seen Volk against Makhachev. It's the guys who can kind of like, you just have to be able to control the wrestling. You will never be able to out wrestle these guys, but if you can control it a little bit and strike them in the mix, you have a chance, right? But anyway, that's UFC Abu Dhabi. Let's go on to the parlay that we put together for this card. It's a nice light one. It should hit. You know, it's only plus 292 for a 3-leg parlay, but there's some good ones in here. Mackenzie Dern over 0.5 takedowns landed. As I said before, she's an insane grappler. She should be able to out grapple. But I guess like that one's almost like my iffiest one. Alvarez versus Brenner, I think it's going to go over 1.5 rounds. Like we said, I don't think either of us think it's gonna go. Even though these guys are submission specialists, usually when you put 2 of those against each other, ends up going to decision. You know, so that's kind of what I'm leaning for there. And then we have Murzakanov versus Menifield. The fight's just not gonna go the distance. I don't think. We've seen these guys knock so many people out. They've been knocked out. Well, Murzakanov hasn't lost, but Menifield's been knocked out. So it feels like this one's ending by knockout. But anyway, light parlay. What are your thoughts on this one, Jesse?
This is my favorite parlay of yours so far, Adam. I like it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I think I feel like every single one of these are lock, and I'm realizing I had a fucking typo on this. It says 200 instead of minus 200. I'm like one. I apologize. I didn't notice that typo at first.
That's okay.
But yeah, I like it a lot. I think that it's just it's a solid one. I think every one of these are going to hit. I have nothing. I have no notes.
I love it. I love it when you stay silent, Jesse. No.
Yeah. There's one I would consider. There was that I would add to it because I actually I would consider adding Shamil Gaziev into the parlay minus 258, just money line against Dontel Mays. I feel like that one's kind of a lock.
Nice.
I think Dontel Mays is going to struggle against Gaziev, but I don't want to even change your parlay. Just keep it. So
hell yeah. Well, that concludes it then. It's been another episode of Insider Betting. We'll be back next Thursday. Jesse, as always, appreciate you joining me, brother.
Yes, sir.
Till next time.